And we know that they have rebuilt the temple under the Persian king's authority. And Nehemiah comes on the scene. And the thing that I like about Nehemiah is he's like a lot of us that get called out of our comfort zone. Nehemiah knows that God is God. He doesn't know an awful lot about the scriptures. They've kind of been lost in the telling over the years. But it's now 450 BC, and he hears words from Ezra that the temple's been rebuilt, but the city walls are in disarray, and people are coming in and desecrating. I mean, they're not keeping the temple holy. And his heart becomes heavy. Now it says that Nehemiah was a governor in his land. He had authority. He was respected. He was just like a middle-class citizen. And he was doing fine. And man, he might be the upper middle class. But when God put the burden on his heart, he decided he needed to do something. Instead of hearing the news and grieving, he went to the king and he says, you know, you've let us do the temple, but the walls are in disarray and people are plummeting, and this is God's holy of holy. Would it be possible for you to send me and others to repair the city walls of Jerusalem? And so Nehemiah takes a group and they go back. And it isn't an easy story. There's only about 13, 14 chapters of Nehemiah. You might want to read it when you go home. It's in the middle. It's the last history book that we have. Nehemiah goes back to that promised land with his people. And when he goes there, not everybody wants him to rebuild the walls. Surprisingly, not even those who say they are of the Hebrew descent. They like the way that they can kind of barter and take advantage of the temple. It's kind of like a Wisconsin Dells scene. We're going to make the most off of the Holy of Holies, and if you put up walls and you kind of make it special, you're going to infringe on some business. And so it says in the book of Nehemiah, he has 3 different times where he almost doesn't accomplish the goal. But God is with him. And Nehemiah knows it. He stays focused on his plan. And in 52 days, the walls are rebuilt in Jerusalem. And then he's a good organizer, because remember I told you he was like a governor of his responsibilities. So he sets up sentries and he does that, and he calls Ezra the scribe, the holy man, to read the book that's in the temple. And the people realize they have not been honoring God the way God wanted. And so they pray and they ask for forgiveness. And it's at this time that Nehemiah writes, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is my strength. Not the Lord gives me joy, but the joy of the Lord gives me strength. Mary, Isaiah, Nehemiah, Donna, Archie, all of us, it's God's joy that gives us strength. So what makes God joyful? What makes God joyful? Just like what makes us joyful. When we have those little kids in our arms, and maybe they're not obeying or doing everything, we still love them, don't we? They bring us joy. We are children of God. Jesus tells us, unless we have the heart of a child, we cannot understand God. When we act like a child, we give God joy. Well, what's the act of the child? Trust and obedience. A child trusts that you're going to take care of them. And most of the time, they're obedient. Yeah, sometimes we have to get after them as they get a little older. But most of the time, they're obedient. And when we are like children, and we are obedient, and we trust God, guess what? God's joy overflows. Why was Mary full of joy? She trusted God in her circumstances and was obedient. She didn't say, go find another. Or, I'm sorry, Lord, I'm engaged and I'm too busy for this job. Or, my life is more important. She said, so be it, according to your will. What did Nehemiah do? He didn't say, well, king, send somebody or send a group to build it. He left his comfort area and his job and his prestige and went against the forces to do what God had asked. You build the wall. What did Isaiah do? Isaiah, in the midst of people that did not want to hear God's word, continued to preach God's word and give the vision. When you and I trust God and are obedient to God's will, that's when we have joy. May the joy of the Lord be your strength this Christmas time. Amen.